Glory to the brave people, Gloria al bravo pueblo. This line celebrates men and women that fought in the 19th century for independence of the country and a good part of South America. The same opening is totally fit to celebrate the people of Venezuela who have been fighting for freedom for more than 25 years now. Freedom from the dictatorship that ruined the country. Freedom from malign international actors that established their basis of operation in Venezuela to destabilize the hemisphere. This fight has been increasingly isolating the regime and increasingly strengthening the democratic movement in Venezuela. Last October, we, the people, chose a woman, María Corina Machado, to lead our people to freedom, and Edmundo González Urrutia as our president. But this fight has consequences. Thousands of Venezuelans have been killed, imprisoned, or exiled. Some of the sons and daughters of these heroes are here now with us. Eugenia Olavarria, daughter of Magali Meda, is campaign manager, Asahi, in the Embassy of Argentina in Caracas. Santiago Rocha is Stella. Son of Perkins Rocha, counselor and spokesperson of María Corina's Edmundo campaign, now in prison. Ana Corina Sosa. Ana Corina, please stand up. Daughter of María Corina Machado, leader and living in an undisclosed location in Venezuela right now. We Venezuelans are determined to get rid of this regime. It's our responsibility, no better. We will not falter. We will not rest until we achieve freedom. And now, it is my distinct honor to present to you the leader of the Democratic Movement of Venezuela, María Corina Machado. Please join me with a round of applause to receive her in this room. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I am very honored, very excited to be with you today, and thank you all for joining us in person and remotely. Only 7 weeks ago, on July 28th, a historic milestone in the Venezuela journey towards freedom happened, and it certainly has profound implications, but only for the democratic movement in Venezuela and the world. Today, during this UN General Assembly, we're celebrating and paying tribute or our deepest gratitude to millions of anonymous heroes of democracy. Those millions of brave Venezuelans in our country and abroad who have opened this battle freedom through their courage and selfless commitment to an unprecedented feat of citizen action and innovation. Thousands of them are in prison, hundreds are in hiding, many have been forced to leave. It's a tribute to all of them. Men and women of all ages who defeated hopelessness and demoralization stood together and decided that united we would liberate the country. These past weeks, we have felt a genuine admiration of our democratic peers worldwide, and this admiration is well deserved. What was accomplished on July 28th and the following days cannot be described as anything less of a heroic accomplishment. A truly impressive and bold triumph that sets a new benchmark for what organized, united citizens can achieve in the face of oppression and seemingly unsurmountable obstacles, not only for Latin America, but for the world. To be part of this undertaking is for me the greatest honor of my life. I am deeply proud of being Venezuelan and to fight beside every single one of you. For 25 years, we have been preparing for this day. And along the way, we have stumbled, we have failed, we have committed mistakes. But every time, we stood back up, learn, and continue. Today, I want to share with you the 3 key components that made this victory possible. First is trust. Over the past 2 years, we have managed to build true connections of trust among Venezuelans in a country that no longer believes in anything. We have been morally disenfranchised, and all hope for a better future has been lost. To the point that over 25% of my compatriots have been forced to flee their country. We crisscross the country many times a month. I remember going to towns where a presidential candidate had last been there 40 or 45 years ago. We tore down walls that had been put to divide us. We heard each other. We embraced each other. We created a movement centered in values that we shared and a fully grassroots and homemade force built from the town, from the periphery to the center to the urban areas and from the bottom up. We empower and activate citizens to take back their power to take ownership of their futures once again. And we also legitimize the political leadership through self-organized primaries that were 100% citizen-led. I cannot stress enough what an act of defiance this stands for. We rebelled against the system and created our own mechanisms of empowerment. Second, unprecedented organization and coordination. I cannot overstate the scale of the volunteer network we created and the operation. It is truly mind-blowing. Our 600K network is the most robust electoral defense force in our history. We had presence in over 99% of our polling stations, 89,000 witnesses, and total more than 1 million volunteers had specific tasks on July 28th. Over 3,500 training workshops were carried out in secret in people's eating rooms and kitchens in common communities all over the country. 70,000 communities, which are small groups at the community level, were created, and they were critical in protecting and supporting all our electoral network. All this was doing united different stakeholders in civil society and political parties around the same goal. And third, innovation and technology. Yes, in a country that has slower internet than IT, we went all the way. And we did things different. We did them the Venezuelan way. First, we created an app coded by talented Venezuelan programmers, which had over 51,000 users reporting in real time what was happening in over 30,000 polling stations. On July 28th, we registered and documented over 170,000 data points so that we could know what was happening all day long, all around the country. Secondly, we started voting partners, attorneys, deeply on how the regime manipulates the voter registry. So we were able to come with a strategy of electoral intelligence plan that was designed to specially protect the 3,000 more critical polling stations in the country and equip them with specially trained personnel. Also, we equipped over 100 data processing centers with electrical generators, satellite internet, and high-resolution scanners. Those were specially located within 1 hour of any single polling station basis where some had to cross rivers or ride horseback in order to quickly transport and digitalize the official tally sheets that our electoral witnesses protected with their lives through the day of the 28th, through the night, and the morning of the 29th. Thanks to the work of hundreds of thousands of volunteers, scanning physical tally sheets and sending QR codes through WhatsApp, we were able to prove the mathematical certainty of our victory in 24 hours after the polling stations closed. We published a search engine where anyone as well could import their ID and see the high-resolution scan of their own tally sheet. It obtained 130 million hits in the first 24 hours. People could actually see the tally sheet of the polling center. I cannot tell you how it happened. By state, municipality, county, and polling station for over 3% of all presses. We then made the database public so that anyone could download and analyze the results. Today, that's been downloaded more than 5 million times, and over 20 reputable media outlets and institutions have stated the authenticity of our activists. In addition, there have been countless open source initiatives that have sprouted all around the internet and keep multiplying as we speak. The truth belongs to us, and it is an uncontrollable force that is undeniable and public. Recently, someone asked me how come under unthinkable conditions we were able to accomplish something so remarkable. Bear this in mind. Neither myself or anyone in our teams were able to take flights, domestic flights. We had to travel by car, motorcycles, or by canoes. Second, we didn't have any paid advertising, not $1, not one single campaign. People made their own posters with what they thought they felt, their own flyers, and campaign ads were absolutely organic. Memes and songs and videos shared through social media. The regime closed down or sanctions the hotels where we stayed, so we had to stay in private homes, hidden. Some of them were also persecuted. We could not buy food in the streets. They also closed along the routes all the gas stations, so we couldn't get to our destinations. So people hid gasoline in advance in strategic spots along the roads where we could feel and keep going. Each time one of our core teams was persecuted and imprisoned, more and more volunteers stood out from all political parties to replace them and take over their tasks. While those who are in hiding or in asylum did their work remotely. So to this person who asked me what was the key to this marvel, I answered, if you want the scientific explanation, it was the Holy Spirit. Because certainly this is a miracle. A miracle achieved with the talent, dedication, courage, and love of our Venezuelan people. What we have accomplished, whoever thinks this is only an electoral struggle space looking at the surface. If you look further, you will see this goes beyond. It is also an ethical struggle for the truth. It is an existential struggle for life. And it is a spiritual struggle for the good. That's why we will win, we will prevail. Venezuelans have never been stronger and more determined than today. Every day that passes by, our strength and determination grows. Venezuela will be free because we have a robust strategy, we have a legitimate leadership, and an unbeatable organization. We will prevail because of these millions of heroes of democracy to whom we pay tribute today. This is Venezuela. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria Corina. Everyone here is very inspired and moved and admire of your work. To prevail, to restore our democracy, to restore our freedom, and to have the nation that we deserve, that is to reunite our families. I'm going to share with you 3 questions that were made from people that are visiting us here. The first question is, as a mom, what does it mean for you to have your daughter here? On the
I feel very proud of the parents. There are thousands of Venezuelan children around the world that are missing very important moments of their families, moments that will never come back. But I'm very proud because they have stepped out and talked and decided to talk, to defend their country. I have to say that sometimes I feel guilty as well because we have taken a lot from them. We're doing this. We've made this decision of life for them and for every single Venezuelan, but at the same time they keep paying a very high cost. But at the end, the end of our lives, that our kids will say it was worthwhile and they will have a country that they will be very proud of.
Another question, are you willing to have a real negotiation with the regime if that means that Venezuelans can achieve a democratic transition?
Absolutely. And Mundo Gonzalez, who's the president-elect, and I have been very clear in that sense. Someone asked me recently if the regime is willing to negotiate, and I said not yet. Because we need to reach a point in which the cost of staying in power is higher than the cost of leaving power for the regime. and we are not there yet. That cost is growing every day that goes by. It grows by the force, strength, oppression of our citizen movement, both Venezuela and our marvelous diaspora, but it also increases as the world lets them know that they will be held accountable for their crimes, and this is an unbearable situation. No stability could come to the regime or the regime. So every day that day goes by and Maduro prolongs his agony means more and more Venezuelans that cross our borders, more drugs that reach the US and Europe, more arms that come from foreign tyrannies, and more destabilization and pain for our society. So we need to move fast. We've never had as much tortillas since today. Maduro is more and more isolated every day, and I'm sure he will realize at the point that it is in his best interest to did not sit down and negotiate a transition with us.
Thank you. The last question is, what would you like to see from the international community during the next month, and if you think that the governments have done enough? So if you like to answer.
Well, I think we have had enormous support in the last days. I think the world already all know the truth. Nobody doubts that we won by a landslide. And the reactions to Maduro unleashing this wave of repression has been huge. Just last week we saw in Geneva the High Commissioner for Human Rights, as well as the Fighting Mission, showing horrible reports, peak reports, and over 6 countries supported it. And I'm sure that this week at the United Nations General Assembly we'll be able to see unprecedented support for our cause. Several parliaments around the world, Colombia, Chile, Costa Rica, Ghana, and the European Parliament have recognized Maduro as president-elect. And I do expect that all these countries, Western, democratic, and all around democratic governments, and recognizes Maduro as well as president-elect. And in parallel, we need to make the regime understand that they will not have midterm financial stability, and that the cost of repression increase systematically. So I think we are moving in the right direction. Our allies are clear what is our strategy. As I said before, we have a strong strategy. We have a united leadership, not only in Muno and myself. We're working together, promoting and receiving all support from everyone and doing it inside Venezuela, but also all the political parties of the opposition and come together in a strong way. And we have all of you to support our cause. People that turn Venezuela into like their own cause. We not only want to reach out to governments, we want to reach out to science, to people all over the world who understand how Venezuela should be a priority for them as well. Loving, freedom loving, democracy loving people all around the world. And we're moving and achieving that. So we will prevail. Venezuela will be free. Political prisoners will be free. And our children will come back.
Thank you, Corina. Definitely, when we conquer a democratic transition in Venezuela, will be a victory for every democratic and freedom fighter across the world. Well, now we'll have here on the floor Carlos Blanco, who is a member of the strategic team of the Venezuelan presidential campaign. Thank you.
Gracias, David. Presidente González, Presidente Papandreou, Dan Erickson, Brian Nichols, Josh Morris, all representatives of the U.S. government, all ambassadors, and thank all of you for being here. We won, and we will make our victory count. Edmundo González will be the President of Venezuela on January 10th. We will not let the regime's brutal and relentless repression overshadow our accomplishments. We have achieved several consecutive key objectives. As María Corina, our querida María Corina, mentioned, the primary, the victory of July 28th, the proof of victory with the official records in hand, the expansion of an international movement for freedom transcending ideological positions, the existence of a popular conviction in the victory within Venezuelans, and unexpected and functional partnership between María Corina and Edmundo González. Meanwhile, the regime is internationally isolated, nationally within the territory, repudiated, and also repudiated by the Venezuelan diaspora. It is that regime in a process of decomposition. It is fragmented. It is in decay. And as its institutional resources deplete, it relies on direct police repression and judicial repression. Institutional avenues to uphold popular sovereignty are exhausted. The National Electoral Council, regime's National Assembly, Supreme Court of Justice, and Attorney General's Office are clearly, for everyone, instruments of Maduro. There are no institutions to appeal to. What remains is to uphold popular sovereignty. Is what we have. Popular sovereignty as the last resort of our movement. Which are our current goals? First of all, push for the regime's recognition of the electoral victory. We all know they don't want to do that. But we have to keep pushing to oblige the regime to do that, to recognize Edmundo González Urrutia's victory. And then we have a deadline. January the 10th is the day in which Edmundo González will become the president of Venezuela, which is our strategy. To stand firm in the demand that the popular sovereignty expressed on July 28 must be respected. We're not backing from that. We're not negotiating that victory. Internationally, we think we should move from the verification of the records asked for many to the recognition of the victory of Edmundo González Urrutia as president-elect of Venezuela. It is going to be necessary to go to the streets again in a more intelligent, imaginative way so as to halt the regime's repression. The military and police forces are obliged to respect the popular mandate. political direction right now, to foster an internal resistance dynamic and prevent further detentions. This means leaders at all levels have to sometimes go underground because the repression that we all know is happening in Venezuela. We need to expand the coalition of parties beyond what led to the electoral victory. Now, the process that is being led by María Corina and Edmundo González is including all the parties, all the groups, even those that didn't participate with us in the electoral campaign. And advance negotiations with the regime as quickly as possible to get the mandate of Venezuelans in the elections, which is to have Edmundo González Urrutia in the presidency of the country next January 10th. We won't give up. We'll have freedom and democracy at the dawn of the 2025 year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carlos, and thank you everyone for being here. Pastor Nicholas, Dan Harrison, former President González, Papa Andreu, all of you, thanks for being here. Jason, members of the diplomatic community, members of the Carlos, members of the think tank community, Ambassador Adala, all of you, thanks for being here. It's my honor now to start the panel of Heroes of Democracy. This is a panel to honor and pay tribute to millions of Venezuelans who have struggled and have endured the worst repression inside of the country. We have with us today, and before introducing you, I will give a short story about what is happening on that side of the room. Because while politicians, diplomats, and everyone are here, daughters and sons of leaders are in that corner of the room and are listening. Mom, talking from clandestinity. Another mom is following this event through a Zoom link because right now it's a refugee in an embassy in Caracas while the regime is trying to detain her. And one dad is not able to listen while we are talking today because while we are here, he is a political prisoner of the regime. The first call I received on July 28 was a call at 6 a.m. And that call was my mom and my grandma from Caracas. They were crying and they called me to say that they were voting for me. And I said, Mom, I'm not on the ballot. It's a movement when you have to vote. They said, not for you like you don't. Voting for you because we want you here. We want you in the country. We want us to be together. And that is the driver of this movement, being able to be together. So without further ado, I want to introduce Eugenia Olavarria, daughter of Magalí Meda, the chief of Com Venezuela, son of President Rocha, a national witness to the Electoral Council on July 28 and part of the legal team of the campaign team, and Ana Corina Machado, daughter of María Corina Machado, leader of the Venezuelan opposition. Taking here, well, I will start with Eugenia. We are going to go in that order, Eugenia, Santiago, and Ana Corina. I don't want to make what usually moderators does in these kind of things, that is provocative questions and that kind of thing. This is already a hard situation and a hard context, and I believe that the best thing we can do is before starting this is honoring with an applause to their moms, their dads, and also to them, because they are a big testimony. We'll start with you, Eugenia. I will give you the floor, and you are free to say whatever you want to say to this audience and to the international community that is listening to us right now.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Hola a todos. Gracias por estar aquí. Es un honor y it's a great honor, and I am extremely grateful to be the daughter of my mother and to be here to talk to you about what has been going on for quite some time. Actually, she describes this whole process as a birth, giving birth to a country that hasn't been for 8 months in the womb. It's been for more than a decade. She has given her entire life to this cause for very deeply personal reasons. In my lifetime, we have seen many elections, and we have lost hope for democracy. We have lost faith because we have seen the deterioration of institutions in our own eyes. Voter turnout this 2024 reached an all-time peak. Call it hope, call it faith, call it trust, but I call it perseverance because they have worked. And what happened today is proof of that, what has happened. We faced our fears, we voted. I didn't vote because I became a refugee not long ago. And that's part of the sacrifice you have to endure when you flee your country. If you work in politics, you are risking your life. You are in danger of being kidnapped by uniformed men with hooded faces and no name tag. My mother is in a sanctuary, uncomfortable sanctuary of protection, but still not being granted her due rights of diplomacy. She is innocent. She's being called a terrorist. She is not a terrorist. The only terror that my mother has ever caused is the fear of losing her. She and her 5 colleagues are there. They're all innocent, as well as all political prisoners who are disappeared, and it's not only torture to them in conditions that are so inhumane, I'd rather not go into that, but it's also torture to the family members who have to run around the country to try to find and localize their family members. So they are in the embassy enduring the pain of having far too many colleagues in jail, disappeared, como Gabito, Perkins, Leonora, Henry, Viallo, Luis, Maria, and so many others kidnapped and disappeared. They're facing one of the outcomes of speaking out against an autocratic oligarchy that has weaponized institutions that are supposed to represent the people. They blame her and her colleagues for the organization of a massive mobilization and decision that the Venezuelans took the 28th of July that firmly rejected the so-called Socialist Party, controlling and dominating all institutions and isolating the country. A failed state with record-breaking economic failure where only those who show loyalty to the regime live in extreme luxury. What my mother actually did was the impeccable job of reminding Venezuelans their electoral rights. Number 1, every party is allowed for witnesses. Number 2, all voters are allowed to stay until the end of election day in their voting centers to see the results of their voting centers. And number 3, witnesses are allowed to keep a tally sheet, a proof, las actas. Witnesses are allowed to keep this proof. Witnesses protected this with their lives. They risked their lives, and some of them are disappeared to keep this proof and to digitalize it and to be able to show it to the world. with discipline, honesty, resilience, the most beautiful and elegant protection of civil rights to vote was made a reality the 28th of July. I am 25 years old as the Chavez regime. I didn't vote. And why? Well, university professors like my father, who did it because of devotion, because the salaries of a teacher, better not mention it, pure devotion, had to deal with young men and women who are borderline depressed and about to endure diarrhea and horrible conditions to flee the country. Young men like my brother who were kidnapped and held for ransom by the police, who are underpaid. The harassment that Dente and many other parties endured during the electoral campaign was unprecedented. Punishing and fining any restaurant, hotel, or person who helps Maria Corina along the way, blocking roads, stealing equipment. Nonetheless, they traveled the country by land, as you heard, hugging broken families, hugging abandoned children as their parents look for income somewhere else, and reminding those who are old enough what a democratic Venezuela is, because we used to have that at some point I never knew. And yes, before we did have social economic discrepancies, there was a gap, but between that gap, there was a bridge of opportunities, there was respect, there was progress, and that bridge was burnt down and left to rot, as the Venezuelan institutions have. And today it is our life mission to reconstruct it again and to be part. My mother likes to say, and it's very true, doing politics is not a crime, and winning elections is not a crime. And many Venezuelans in exile wish to come back. I wish to come back. I wish to be with my family, and my mother deserves to be in her home. She deserves so much more. And yeah, we want to take care of Venezuela. We want to go back. We want to welcome you all in this beautiful country. So, I know, Ma, ¿me estás escuchando? Estoy tan orgullosa. De verdad que hermoso lo que has logrado en Venezuela. It's really, it's the proof of the beauty of the country and its people, the dedication of those 6 people in the embassy, and I just want to say thank you. Gracias, Ma. Gracias. It's an honor. Thank you.
Santiago Rocha. Santiago is the son of Perkins Rocha, who is part of the legal team of the campaign, but also was our national witness to the Electoral Council on the night of July 28th. So, Santiago, the floor is yours.
Bueno, mi discurso es en español porque creo que quiero que mi papá lo escuche. Y a él el inglés no se le da muy bien. Entonces, mi padre, Perkins Rocha, hombre de familia, honesto, honorable, amoroso, abogado, ex magistrado, testigo por parte de los ciudadanos venezolanos ante el CNE en las elecciones presidenciales, asesor legal del Partido 20 Venezuela y el Comando con Venezuela. Fue secuestrado el pasado 27 de agosto por fuerzas de represión del régimen venezolano al salir de una farmacia en Caracas. Fue empujado, golpeado y arrastrado hacia uno de sus vehículos y llevado en contra de su voluntad. Posiblemente ni siquiera ellos sabían en ese momento la condición médica especial que tiene mi padre, que es la de que tiene una válvula en el cerebro que está conectada a una manguera que baja hacia el estómago, y cualquier golpe o forcejeo que le hagan puede resultar en traducirse en resultados fatales para mi papá y su salud. Horas posteriores a su secuestro, personas encapuchadas entraron a nuestra casa sin ningún tipo de orden, sin haber nadie presente, y se robaron objetos de trabajo de mi padre, como documentos, computadoras y además objetos personales de nuestra familia. Al día siguiente, mediante un mensaje de texto, nos pudimos enterar que se le había hecho una audiencia express en el helicoide, en el centro de detención del helicoide en Caracas, en la cual se le negó la posibilidad de optar por un abogado de su confianza que velase por sus intereses. Y se le puso un abogado del Estado. En esa audiencia se le presentaron los cargos de instigación al odio, conspiración, asociación para delinquir, terrorismo y traición a la patria. A mi padre, que está dando su vida y su libertad por la patria. Desde el 27 de agosto se nos ha impedido tener algún tipo de contacto directo con él para conocer su estado de salud físico y mental, ya que el personal del helicoide nos dice que está en un periodo de adaptación. En ese momento me pregunto yo, ¿adaptación a qué? A la tortura, al aislamiento total. ¿Adaptación a qué? Lo muy triste de esta historia es que, de la historia de mi padre, es que no es un caso único y aislado. Es un hecho recurrente que pasa todos los días en Venezuela. Como él, secuestrados se encuentran personas honorables, como Américo de Gracia, Diayo Pilleri, Dignora Hernández, Henry Alviares, Williams Dávila, Freddy Suterrano, Antonio Sequea, Fernando Anoya, Alejandro González, Ricardo Albacete, María Oropesa, Gabo y miles de presos políticos. En Venezuela, la violación de los derechos fundamentales humanos ya es una práctica común del régimen, que no ve personas, sino fichas de canje para negociaciones. Y la verdad es que al momento de convertirse en un preso político, una persona, su familia también es rehén. Todos sufrimos por igual. Sufro por la integridad física de mi madre en Caracas, la cual se expone todos los días ante los organismos del Estado para intentar asegurar el bienestar de mi padre. La represión en Venezuela y la política del terrorismo de Estado es en todas las direcciones y en contra de todos los venezolanos que piensan distinto y que quieren una mejor Venezuela. Porque actualmente todos somos privados de libertad. Porque estar libre, entre comillas, pero resguardado forzadamente como María Corina, como Guanipa, como Delsa, no es estar libre. Porque estar fuera de nuestro país, como Antonio Ledesma, David Smonansky, el presidente electo Edmundo González, y que se nos niegue la posibilidad de volver, no es estar libre. Porque estar asilados en una embajada bajo tratos inhumanos, como Magali, como Macero, Urruchurtu, Villalobos, Mótola, González, no es estar libre. Porque querer decir lo que piensas y no poder decirlo por temor a las represalias no es estar libre. Todos los venezolanos sufrimos de haber sido privados de nuestra libertad, porque la libertad no es a medias, la libertad es completa. O es toda o es nada. Los más de 7 millones de venezolanos que pudieron votar en las elecciones y los más de 8 millones que estamos en el exilio hemos decidido que ya basta, que queremos un cambio y que la libertad es de todos y para todos, y no solo para una cúpula. Yo no he perdido la fe, los venezolanos no hemos perdido la fe. Esta sensación de libertad tan tangible y hermosa que sentimos es algo a lo cual no estamos dispuestos a renunciar. Como dijo mi padre, vamos a hacer cumplir la libertad de los venezolanos hasta con nuestras vidas. No nos derrumbamos, los venezolanos nos tenemos y ahora más que nunca estamos más fuertes. porque esto es hasta el final.
Now we introduce Ana Corina Machado, daughter of María Corina Machado, the leader of the Venezuelan Democratic Forces. Ana Corina, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, bear with me because I was planning to do this in Spanish, but I'm going to do it in English because I think it's important to spread the word abroad, across the globe. I think the scale and magnitude of the repression of Nicolás Maduro and the Chavista regime has been evidenced. In the case of my family, it's lasted for more than 2 decades now. And to be honest, it's always hard for me to talk about my personal story or my family's personal story because we're just one in millions of Venezuelan families that have witnessed firsthand the weight of the dictatorship in Venezuela. But I've come to realize that it is important to unveil just how cruel this dictatorship is and give color and a face to their repression. So I'm going to share a personal story, and I'm going to go all the way back to 2012, which is a moment in time in my life that I share with millions of Venezuelans, which is the time I had to leave my country. This was in the middle of a very tense electoral year, 2012, and I was in the middle of my university career and degree in Venezuela. And at that point, my mother's security team requested a meeting with both of us, and it was made very clear that I had to leave the country immediately if my mother wanted to continue being the face against the brutal dictatorship. My brothers and I could no longer remain in Venezuela. And as many Venezuelans sadly understand this very well, that was a very painful moment of having to leave your country behind, your life, your family, starting from scratch. And I felt very guilty because I felt like I was abandoning her in her fight. But I moved to the US. And many months later, I remember I was studying for my finals exams, and my phone starts vibrating. I start receiving a lot of messages at the same time, and I get an incoming call from someone, my mother's team, and at that point my heart just stopped. I knew something wasn't right, and that makes you realize what us Venezuelans have to live through. We just carry a sense of anguish constantly with us. Those of us who have families at home know what the regime is capable of doing and are in constant fear that we're going to get a call with bad news. And I pick up the phone and she says, I want you to stay calm. Your mother is safe now. She's okay. And those are reassuring words that no child wants to hear. And I say, please tell me what happened. This was in April 2013, in the middle of a parliamentary session. Parliamentarians from the Chavista regime physically assaulted the opposition parliamentaries, including my mother. She was beaten to the ground, carried through the floor, kicked in her face until it was destroyed, and she had to be hospitalized. And at that time, I was lucky I could go back to Venezuela. I took the first plane that I was able to and went to see her. And frankly, that was one of the hardest moments of my life, seeing her in bed, immobile, her face destroyed. She could barely speak. And as a child, all I wanted to do was cry out of frustration, anger. It was the first time I could really witness what the dictatorship was capable of doing and how far they were able and willing to reach. And all I wanted to ask her was to stop. Enough, please. I wanted to protect her. But something within me understood the magnitude of what was at stake. It was far greater than me as her child or my mother as my mother. You know, we were fighting for the freedom of an entire nation. And I still don't know how I kept my tears to myself. And I held her hand. I had the courage to tell her, you have to keep going. And we'll be here to support you in every step of the way. And what follows, you know, I think, well, in some measure, she hasn't been able to leave the country for 10 years, and she's now in hiding, and there's not a moment in my life that I don't fear for her safety. But we have been lucky, I guess, in a way, because you know her, and you know her story well, and that has, in some measure, protected her from the degree with which what the government can do to her at no cost. But that is not the case for millions of other Venezuelans. And as you've heard, there's thousands of anonymous heroes that have not had the same luck. Since the 28th of July, almost 2,000 Venezuelans have been detained, disappeared, imprisoned, killed. Of those, 226 are women and 60 are minors, which is the case of Jose David Crespo, who was 14 years old, 14, when he was detained along his father on the 30th of July. Or Emil Castellanos, a woman who suffers from lupus and has a kidney infection. He was detained on the 6th of August in Carabobo and has no access to medicine, which is a human right. And so is the story of many others. And as I speak now, it almost sounds helpless, the cost. Insurmountable dictatorship with support from very bad actors, as you know, in the global sphere. But when I meet people like Santiago and Eugenia, I'm filled with hope because I see that unbreakable spirit that is so characteristic of us Venezuelans. Our generation has been stripped of so much. We've been robbed from the opportunity of growing up back home. We've been stripped from the opportunity of spending Christmas with our families, and in many cases, including mine, from burying our grandparents who have grown old while we live abroad. We are taken away the chance to speak our minds and get informed, communicate with each other, because they closed down social media and channels, news channels in Venezuela. Some of us have been stripped of their freedom, and far too many have been robbed of their own lives. But they will never take away our dream of living in freedom. Our hope of going back to Venezuela again and get reunited with our families. And us as a generation have such big responsibility for rebuilding our country, regaining our future. And I am convinced more than ever, and every time I meet people like the two of you, I become more grounded in the fact that we remain more firm than ever before to gain back our freedom and respect the sovereignty of our country, which is the majority of the people what we want. So thank you for having us, and please stay with us.
Thank you. And I want everyone to give another round of applause to the three of them.